The temperature was minus 40 degrees Celsius, and the wind over the Kola River cut like broken glass. Breath froze in the beard, metal stuck to bare skin. Men died of cold before the bullets found them. Yet somewhere out there in that white hell, a lone Finn in a white snowsuit was crawling on his belly, dragging a Mosin Nagant and a Suomi submachine gun, hunting Russians the way a wolf hunts reindeer. They called him Belaya Smert, the White Death. His real name was Simo Häyhä, a farmer's son from Rautjärvi, barely 5'3", soft-spoken, the kind of man who apologized to horses when he had to slap them into motion. Before the war, he had spent Sundays lying in the snow with a .22 rifle, plinking at targets no bigger than a matchbox at 300 meters just to see if he could. He could. He had won so many shooting contests that the local clubs finally asked him politely to stop entering so other men could have a chance. Then, on the last day of November 1939, Stalin's Red Army crossed the border with 450,000 men, 2,000 tanks, and the certainty that Finland would fall in 2 weeks. They were wrong. The war that followed would be called Talvisota, the Winter War, and no single man would cast a longer shadow across its frozen battlefields than Simo Häyhä. He arrived at the Kola front in December as part of the 6th Company, 34th Infantry Regiment. The Finnish line there was not a line at all, just scattered strongpoints in the forest, frozen lakes, and a river that sometimes burned when artillery set the trees alight. The Soviets attacked with entire regiments at a time, marching shoulder to shoulder in greatcoats the color of dried blood, singing Katyusha while T-26 tanks clattered ahead of them. The Finns had no tanks. They had skis, Motti tactics, and men like Simo. His first kill happened on the 2nd day. A Soviet platoon was advancing across the ice of Lake Hirvasjärvi, spread out in perfect parade formation. Simo lay prone behind a snow ridge 250 meters away. Iron sights only. He never trusted scopes in that cold. The lenses fogged, the tubes gathered condensation, and the glint gave you away. He waited until the platoon commander raised his arm to signal the final rush. One shot. The officer dropped. The platoon milled in confusion. Simo worked the bolt, fired again and again and again. When the magazine was empty, 8 Russians lay on the ice, and the rest were running back the way they had come, slipping and falling in their panic. That was day 2. By day 5, the Soviets had learned to fear open ground near Kola. By day 10, they refused to move in daylight at all. By Christmas, they were calling the stretch of forest Death's Highway and offering 100,000 Finnish marks for the head of the sniper they could not find. They never came close. Simo did not operate like the snipers of legend who perched in church steeples with telescopic rifles. He worked close, 150 to 300 meters, because at those ranges, the 7.62 by 54R bullet from the Finnish-marked M2830 Pustikorva Spitz still hit with over 2,000 joules of energy, and the cold air made it fly flat and true. He used no spotter. He kept his rifle inside his jacket between shots to prevent the bolt from freezing. He packed snow into his mouth so his breath would not rise like smoke and betray him. He built small snow caves where simply burrowed backward into drifts until only his eyes and the muzzle showed. Sometimes he stayed in position for 18 hours without moving. And he never fired from the same place twice. The Soviets tried everything. They sent their own snipers, Siberian hunters from the 56th Rifle Division, men who had killed wolves at half a kilometer. They died with neat holes between the eyes. They shelled every patch of forest where a shot had come from. Simo was already gone, crawling away on his belly, dragging his skis behind him like a seal. They brought up counter-battery teams with sound-ranging equipment. Simo simply waited until the barrage lifted, then crawled back and started again.
By the end of January 1940, his tally, carefully recorded by his company commander Captain Mikko Kallinen in the war diary, stood at 219 confirmed kills with the rifle. But Simo also carried a Suomi KP-31 submachine gun, and when the Soviets tried to rush attacks across the frozen river, he rose from the snow like a ghost and cut them down at 20 meters. Those kills, 283 more, were not counted in the sniper total by the Finnish command, but the Red Army soldiers who survived remembered. One of them, a lieutenant named Viktor Ivanov, wrote years later, "We were told the Finns had no men left, only old men and boys. Then one day we attacked across the ice with 2 companies. Halfway across, the shooting started. Not rifles, a machine pistol. Men fell and rose. We thought it was a nest, a strong point. We turned to run and the rifle began, slow, deliberate. 1 shot, 1 man, no hurry. By the time we reached our own lines again, we had lost 87 men and had not seen a single enemy soldier. That night the political officer shot himself. No one blamed him." The temperature kept dropping. In February, it hit -43. Men's eyelids froze shut. Ammunition grew brittle and misfired. Frostbite turned fingers black overnight. Simo's own eyelashes were white with rime, but his eyes stayed clear and pale as glacier ice. The Soviets changed tactics. They began sending entire battalions in night attacks, hoping darkness would hide them. Simo simply waited for the moon to rise over the snow and went back to work. Moonlight on fresh snow is almost as bright as day, and the Russians cast long shadows that pointed straight to them. On February 12th, the Red Army launched its big push to break the Kola position once and for all. 3 divisions, over 30,000 men, supported by 2 tank brigades and massed artillery. The barrage went on for 14 hours. When it stopped, waves of infantry in horizon blue greatcoats rose from their trenches and began walking west. Simo had spent the bombardment inside a snow cave no bigger than a coffin, eating frozen cloudberries and listening to the shells scream overhead. When silence fell, he crawled out, brushed the snow from his white hood, and took position on a small knoll overlooking the Rate Road junction. What followed was not a battle, it was extermination. Over the next 6 days, Simo, working sometimes alone, sometimes with 2 or 3 other ski troops as scouts, killed so many Soviet soldiers that the 44th Rifle Division, the famous Blue Division from Ukraine, refused orders to advance. Men threw down their rifles and begged to be sent anywhere else. Regimental commissars shot dozens for cowardice. It changed nothing. The division lost 3,000 men in a week and gained less than a kilometer of frozen forest. On February 21st, the Soviets tried a new trick. They sent a company dressed in stolen Finnish white camouflage, hoping to infiltrate the lines. Simo spotted them because the cut of their suits was wrong, too baggy, the hoods too deep. He let the first platoon pass his position, then opened fire on the officers bringing up the rear. The disguised Soviets scattered into the trees and ran straight into a Finnish ambush that had been waiting for exactly this. Not one man made it back. By the 1st of March, Simo's confirmed rifle kills had reached 505. The uncounted submachine gun victims pushed his total past 550. Finnish High Command, terrified he would be captured and paraded in Moscow, ordered him withdrawn to a safer sector. Simo refused. He said, "The work is not finished." It almost finished him instead. On March 6, 1940, during a Soviet probing attack near the village of Ulisma, a Soviet sniper finally got lucky. An explosive bullet, illegal under every convention, caught Simo in the left side of the face as he raised his head a fraction too far. The round tore away half his jaw, shattered teeth into his throat, and flung him backward into the snow like a discarded doll. His comrades found him an hour later, unconscious, blood frozen solid across his chest, pulse barely flickering. They carried him on a sled 20 kilometers through the forest to a field hospital. The surgeon, Lieutenant Colonel Väinö Matonen, took one look and told the orderlies to prepare the morgue tent. Then Simo coughed, a wet bubbling sound, and opened one eye.
He would live. Barely. He woke up a week later in a hospital bed in Helsinki. It was March 13th, the day the Winter War ended. Finland had survived, battered but unbroken. The Soviet Union had lost perhaps 400,000 men, killed, wounded, or frozen to death. And the Kola front, the place the Finns had nicknamed the Miracle River, had held. Simo's war was over. His face would never be the same, half of it rebuilt with bone grafts and skin flaps, his speech forever thick and slurred, but his eyes stayed the same, pale, calm, deadly. When Marshal Mannerheim promoted him from corporal to second lieutenant, the only man in Finnish history to receive such a battlefield commission, he accepted the new uniform without ceremony. When reporters swarmed him asking how he had done it, he shrugged the one shoulder that still worked properly and said, "Practice." Years later, when asked if he felt remorse for the hundreds of lives he had taken, he thought for a long time and answered in his slow, damaged voice, "I only did my duty. The regret is that the war came at all. But if someone points a gun at my house, I will shoot first." He went home to Rautjärvi after the continuation war, raised dogs, hunted moose with the same iron-sighted rifle, and lived quietly until 2002, dying at the age of 96. He never wrote a book. He never gave lectures. He simply went back to being the soft-spoken farmer who apologized to horses. But every winter, when the snow lies deep in Karelia and the wind howls down from the Arctic, old men in Moscow and St. Petersburg still tell their grandsons about the white ghost who stopped an army with one rifle and 100 days of winter. They call him Belaya Smert, and somewhere out there, under the northern lights, the snow still waits.